I'm Mickey Pellerano, and this is Time Lord TV, the show where we talk about astrology, occultism, and how they interface with art and culture. Our featured guest today is Maja D'Aoust. I first discovered Maja from reading her book, The Secret Source, which she co-authored with Adam Parfrey many years ago. I became a big fan of Maja, and I would attend her lectures here in LA called Maja's Magic School, where she talked about all kinds of esoteric topics. She's a brilliant woman, and she's here to discuss her latest book, The Familiar in Witchcraft, where she talks about not only the witch's familiar, but all kinds of spirit contact. Maja's book is also illustrated by her amazing drawings that are super captivating and otherworldly. Our musical guest today is Crush, my friends Zumi and Cole. It's their side project from their other band, The Black Lips, and we're going to be premiering their video right here on Time Lord TV for the very first time. So it's going to be great. We're going to start off the show with the astrological forecast as usual, and then on to the rest from there. Stick around.
November 5th, Venus in Capricorn, Mercury in Scorpio. On November 5th, the cool and moist vapors of Venus enter the rugged terrain of Capricorn. For the next 12 days, before she enters the shadow period of her retrograde cycle, Venus will accustom herself to her new austere environment, shedding the bohemian vestments of Sagittarius for the earthly cloak of Capricorn. Her melodic flow will seep into the essential needs of the body and the earth. The eye of beauty will cast itself upon the practicalities of the material world. Sentimentality will give way to nurturing our mundane development, finding inspiration in the laborious, the physical, and the primal. Here, Venus slowly approaches Pluto, concealer of immense power, obtained only through trials of initiation. Venus will be working in harmony with the powerful stellium in Scorpio, presided over by Mars in his domicile, terms, and face. Here, Mars rules over the Sun in its own face, and Mercury, who makes his entrance to join them on this day. Mars, in this first phase of Scorpio, burns with craving and conquest. He desires the obscure, occult, or forbidden. Pulsing with the urge for conjugal union, obliteration, and transformation. Venus will regard Mars as her lord of exaltation at this time, and succumb to his commands with familiarity and favor, and their relationship will increase in potency through the end of the month. The Sun, being in the second phase of Scorpio, awards the power of the soul and its purest effulgence to radiate with the bliss of surrender. In this phase of Scorpio, the seeker is united with mystery in an ecstatic embrace, and transformation occurs through the union of polarities, with vivid and radiant light streams. But his pace is rapid, and the Sun will prolong direct concourse with Venus until their imminent union after the solstice. Saturn, Venus's ruler, and Jupiter have little regard for Venus at this time, but they are in acute disharmony with Mars, Mercury, and the Sun in Scorpio. Saturn is a worthy adversary for Mars, both being potent in their signs of rulership. Mars, being superior in the square, will have the advantage. Force, lust, hunger, and mystery will dominate the cold restraints of Saturn, but not without some difficulty and frustration. Saturn square to the Sun inhibits the unbridled radiance of the soul for the sake of propriety and austerity, but the Sun will resist powerfully, intoxicated by the martial impulses. And Mercury, too, will direct our thoughts and our discourse through the caverns of the passionate, destructive, and the taboo. Jupiter is inferior in rank to Saturn while in Aquarius, but his presence there softens the quality of Saturn toward the expansive connotations of that sign. Saturn and Jupiter will draw us towards solitude, invention, and altruism by the fixed sign of air, while Mars and his powerful consorts will challenge them with the intensity of the erotic and destructive gravity of Scorpio. November 10th, Mars squares Saturn. This dynamic will reach its peak on November 10th, when Mars will be configured in partile square with Saturn. Meanwhile, Mars is also in perfect conjunction with Mercury. Never in our lifetimes have we seen the titanic forces of Scorpio and Aquarius in such vivid contention. Jupiter and Saturn have not conjoined in Aquarius since the year 1405, and on this day, the moon will pass over this great conjunction for the penultimate time. Meanwhile, the sun still blazes in its own resplendent decan of Scorpio, while Mars fuels the transformative crucibles there, with Mercury enfolded in his powerful embrace. Our highest sense of order and sanctity will unite with our limbic and psychosomatic complexes in vivid manifestation, attempting to anchor us from conjugal obliteration and towards renunciation and innovation through the powers of the mind. Meanwhile, our hearts and minds will be throbbing with the impossible libidinal drives of the deep psyche's need to transcend through sex and death. November 12th, Venus enters shadow. 2 days later, Venus, still reeling from the titanic clash of Mars and Saturn, will drift slowly into her period of shadow. She approaches Pluto, shrouding herself in a veil of mourning and cleansing herself with oblations as she prepares for the underworld journey marked by her retrograde. It is time to reflect on what we find beautiful, what glittering things have drawn our attention and enfolded us in the fantasies of the lover and the artist. The blessings of the muse are ephemeral and unpredictable, and we must prepare our minds and our craft to become a stronger vessel for the new forms she will take. The ways of love are hard and steep, uncertain, and ever-changing. We too must divest ourselves of what we have glazed over with a candied veneer, what we have varnished out of our own projection, and what we have colored with the lenses of beautification. For we will see such things stripped of their adornments, in their cold and naked simplicity. We can see beyond the illusions woven by the power of Eros, cleanse them in the fire, and witness their rebirth as a herald of the daylight hours. November 19th, Taurus lunar eclipse on Algol. The moon is exalted in Taurus because it is the province of the slow, steady, and consistent principle of growth in the natural world. It brings a cultivated immersion into nature and the body. However, this lunation is construed far away from what is wholesome. The moon will be visibly eclipsed this night due to her proximity to the North Lunar Node in Gemini. This poses complications for those with placements in both late Taurus and early Gemini. Eclipses on the North Node create ravenous hunger, excess, things brought into being with an abominable largeness about them. Its energy is unhealthy and disorienting. Significantly, the moon becomes full precisely at the degree of the fixed star Algol. Algol is the eye of the Gorgon in the constellation of Perseus. The petrification of Shakti energy that persists after physical death. For Medusa is crowned with serpents, as are the devas who have raised the energy of Kundalini through the central channel of consciousness. Both Algol and the lunar nodes are marked with the iconography of the serpent, for their energy is sacred and transcendental, yet highly toxic if directed without wisdom and precision. Compounded with the hard aspects to Mars and Saturn, and the presence of Uranus in Taurus, this is a highly treacherous eclipse. We may be misguided by ungrounded fear, obsession, wrath, revenge, intoxication, or compulsion. Highly recommended come meditation and prayer, a moderate diet, and a peaceful environment, avoiding sexual activity, as well as situations that might trigger the emotions, overindulgence, or aggression. November 22nd, Sun Sagittarius ingress. On November 22nd, the Sun moves out of Scorpio and into Sagittarius. The Sun is free from contention from the malefic planets at this time, yes, and it is ruled over by the celebratory heirs of Jupiter. However, it must pass over the South Lunar Node at this threshold and prepare for the upcoming solar eclipse in December. Just as the North Node craves excess of both pleasure and pain, the South Node pulls toward dissolution, evacuation, dematerializing, and cleansing. It too has a narcotic quality, but one that lends itself toward disassociation and evasion. Mercifully, the solar eclipse will not be quite as potent as the lunar eclipse that precedes it. However, it would be wise to err on the side of moderation this holiday season, to avoid activities that might drain the life force or dull the senses excessively. Instead, we might wish to honor the inherent sacredness of these holy days. Thanksgiving observes and glorifies the panacea exercised by gratitude. It is spiritually healing and mentally uplifting when we appreciate our bonds with others as the most precious blessings in our lives. The upcoming winter solstice promises much more favorable conditions in the heavens, and treasures to be obtained after the autumn's time of disillusionment and conflict.
Okay. We can but go. I have to know. Jump the lip. Come zip. Have it right. We can play tonight. We can catch a buzz. And it all because. Now come on, blood. Come on, blood. Come on, blood. Come on, blood. 'Cause there ain't no prisons no more. No more tonight. 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 Come. You can act the chump. You can act deranged. You can have it strange. You can come to live. You can have it tonight. You can get it back. You can get it back. Now come on, blood. Come on, blood. Come on, blood. 'Cause there ain't no prisons no more. No more tonight. More tonight. More tonight. No more tonight. We can just live. You can lead a range. You can come to range. Now come on, blood. Come on, blood. Now come on, blood. 'Cause there ain't no prisons no more. No more night. More night. No 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 more night.
Hello, good to see you.
Damn, you guys, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So tell us about this video and this track.
Well, the song is called Come on Blood,
Yeah, we recorded it a long time ago,
like years ago.
and then we kind of just made our own video, and then we just kind of sat on it for a long time, and we've been wanting to share it for a while. So now's the time, I think.
Yeah.
The stars have aligned.
When it was recorded, Cole, at the time, I was in LA, he was in Atlanta, and he sent me he's like, I worked on this track and I recorded some stuff and I want you to record something over it. So he sent whatever he recorded, which was like the vocals and drums or whatever. And then we were sort of talking about when he drank my period blood out of my diva cup and
oh yeah, Zumi had a diva cup she was using, and I've always thought I had an adventurous palate, but something drew me to want to try it.
Something being the fact that you read that,
So
that there was DMT in period blood. That's what the something was that drew him to.
I think we did a little research. Like after we drank, I think we'd heard about someone else drinking it, and so I wanted to try it. But then we were looking on the internet. It said there's high levels of DMT in the menstrual blood, and it even said that the ancient Egyptians used to do this practice of drinking menstrual blood,
like
using it to fertilize plants.
Fertilize plants, psychedelic properties, and just the fact that it's associated with fertility. So it was sort of like, it was used in a lot of different, ritual ways.
I think the cup though has practical uses, like if you want to drink it or put your plants, give them some iron.
He poured the blood in his tomato plants, which I think killed the tomato plant. Actually.
So yeah, it might be practical for some people, but I could see how it wouldn't always be.
Yeah, I mean, I still keep trying to make it work. Who knows? I just found a red diva cup. Yeah. Red is like, normally I'm dressed in red all the time, which I got very excited about. So I bought this red diva cup.
Does it not come in handy too? Like if you didn't have a tampon and you have that, it could come in handy as like kind of a backup.
But I also love that it's called a diva. It's called a diva cup. Anyway,
or if you want to like cast a spell, you can always use it.
It's great. It's great if you want to actually collect the blood and use it for specific purposes.
Yeah.
So this is sort of like when he sent me like what he had recorded. There's like a song's called "Come on Blood." I thought, well, like maybe I should just masturbate and record. He wanted me to record backup vocals. So we were talking about Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin and I was like masturbating and like recording my breathing while I was masturbating. So it's almost sex magic,
right, like an astral kind of coming together or whatever, because you were divided.
Because thinking about Cole, like masturbating, thinking about Cole recording, listening to his voice, and then then imprinting my own experience onto what he had already recorded. So,
I think it comes through in the song well too.
Yeah, but it's interesting because like it also connects with the Egyptians again because there's a whole like creation myth about like Atum masturbated and that's how spawned because he was alone. It was only himself. I think they refer to his own hand being like a female part of his body because
it makes
similar to
sense because if there were no women, if there was only man, your hand is your sexual part.
Right. So that's literally like the hand was like, that was the female part of his body, which is also just interesting to think about, like a part of your body being female and anyway. So,
and you guys, honestly, I swear to God, I just had a total revelation in terms of like Thelemic magic, Aleister Crowley's system of magic, because you're supposed to worship the sun, Liber, Reshvel, Helios at sunrise, midday, sunset, and midnight. And you worship the sun as a different deity at each time, right? Like it's Ra in the morning when it rises.
Right.
And it's Kefra when it's the midnight sun, right? The beetle god, Kefra in thy hiding. But it's Atum or Tum in thy setting. And the hand gesture that you're supposed to make, because you make different hand gestures throughout, is this. Like it's a triangle.
That makes total sense. It's like, it's the pussy.
Yeah. because Hathor,
the vagine.
Yeah, because at midday it's Hathor, it's the cow goddess, and it's this like upraised like phallic thing, right? And Ra in the morning, and Kefra in thy silence. But yeah, Atum, and it says, "Hail unto thee who art Atum in thy setting, even unto thee who art Tum in thy joy."
Wow.
And I never understood that. But the setting sun is kind of like the declining orgasmic moment, right? It's like it's no longer rising; it's like a falling.
Right.
So it totally has that resonance.
That's so interesting.
So this track, in essence, right, was not only a bit of like astral lovemaking, but it was kind of an experiment in kind of Egyptian sex magic, right?
Because, yes, exactly. Yeah. And there's a whole, like Isis and Osiris. His brother Seth, I think his brother, who out of jealousy or whatever, he was cut into pieces and cast all over.
Right.
And Isis, who was his sister, but also lovers, found all of his parts except for the dick, but then she created a phallus, and then that was the first mummification, was her putting all his parts together. It's also interesting.
Yeah, and the magic was obviously successful, don't you think? Because now you guys are like making music together all the time and touring all over the place, and this experiment led to essentially a full-on career where you're doing this like and you are together and you're doing it all the time.
There's like a utilitarian aspect to the hand as well, like
They used to masturbate into the Nile too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were really into masturbation.
And the Blue Lotus, is it kind of like mildly psychedelic or something, or
it is.
It can help induce dreams, and it's kind of a herbal like supplement.
Yeah,
like
it's supposed to be like third eye opening, so it aids in like lucid dreaming, and it aids in. I hear people who want to kind of like wean themselves off cannabis. They smoke Blue Lotus. I first learned about it from an occult bookstore in Minneapolis called Magus Books. You know that place?
I think I know that place.
Because it's right next to the Varsity, the venue there. Like it's right next to it.
I think I've been there. There's a bookstore I love that has like a lot of weird esoteric books. It has to be.
That's probably the one. It's one of my favorite occult bookstores, and that's where I discovered Blue Lotus because it's kind of hard to come by.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it till recently.
It's really great.
My hands on some Blue Lotus.
Yeah, and Kenneth Grant, the Typhonian OTO, they swore by that the female body was able to excrete certain substances under certain ritual conditions that had magical properties. You know what I mean?
AKA your
the period.
Totally.
AKA your period.
Yeah. So you guys,
when Cole drank, like I remember when he drank the blood, he totally was like.
I felt like it did have an effect. I didn't know if it was just me psychosomatically tripping myself out, but I felt just kind of different. I don't know. Really? It's hard to explain,
Also, I just want to give
something's
credit.
different, but you don't know. My friend, put your finger on it. It's ineffable.
It's also like Blue Lotus. Like when you're using subtle herbs or subtle properties, it's not like cannabis or DMT where you're like, whoa. It's like you have to pay careful attention to the subtle shifts that occur.
It's like a subtle inebriated. It's not.
My friend Vish, by the way, I just want to give credit, is the one who I heard that he drank my friend's Diva Cup, and I thought that was the sexiest thing ever, and I told Cole about it, and so
then I just
wanted to give a little credit to Vish.
Well, I gotta get you guys. I'm gonna send you guys a book because like the Greco magical papyri, the Greco-Egyptian magical papyri are like super powerful, and they're full of all this great magic. And new translations are coming out actually of ones that haven't even been available before or translated before. So there's a lot of information there, and you guys definitely have to try it out because I've known you both for a long time, and I've always known you to be very magical, naturally magical humans, both of you, and so creative and so, I don't know, tuned in and having this natural mysticism about you. So, your experiences in sex magic and even Proto-Egyptian magic and stuff like that have definitely proved to be fruitful. Are you going to take it further? You're going to make a full-on record of this kind of stuff?
We have a record that we're going to put out very soon of stuff that we've been recording for the last 7 years or something. But it's close. It's close to being on its way, actually, to be birthed into the world. So, yes. We have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
All right.
Showing this thing is really cool too, because I think it's the only visual thing we've ever shown out in public. We have like
video,
a SoundCloud.
our friend Ian Cohn, just to say about the video, our friend Ian Cohn shot the video.
Yeah.
It was shot at Cole's house. So Cole basically like art directed the whole thing. And I mean, I helped too.
Very homespun DIY kind of video.
Yeah. And shot in Super 8. And it's been basically laying around waiting to be shot out into the world for years.
Ready to be disseminated.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the only place that people will be able to see the video is your show.
Well, it's a tremendous honor for it to be shown on Time Lord TV.
I mean, it makes sense.
And also it's beautiful. It looks like Invocation of My Demon Brother or something like that. I mean, you guys did a gorgeous job. And Ian, who's awesome, did a great job too.
Yeah.
You guys, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
here
you.
and for the honor of premiering the video on the show.
Pleasure
no better
is
place.
ours.
It's so gorgeous. It's sexy. I love you both. You're
Love you too.
always blowing my mind. Seriously. Well, this has been so great. I'm so grateful. And please stick around because we've got Maja D'Aoust coming up next, talking about witchcraft and familiar spirits. So we're here with Maja D'Aoust, author of this book, Familiars in Witchcraft. Amazing book.
Thank you, Mickey.
One of the things that I love the most about this book is that it's not only about sort of the way we think of the witch's familiar in and of itself, but it has to do with all kinds of different spirit relationships, really.
That's right. I really wanted to expand it out. I get persnickety when people only think familiars are black cats or, the whole affiliation with witches and black cats, which is fine. You can totally have a black cat familiar, but throughout history in countries all over the world, people have had familiar spirits that are not only animals, but also plants. A lot of shamanic cultures have relationships, even marriages with plant spirits and different trees. And then also there's sentient consciousnesses that we can have as familiar spirits as well.
Huh. So for those of our viewers who might not be familiar with the phrase, can you please give us a bit of a definition of what a familiar spirit might even be from a witchcraft tradition, maybe starting there and then expanding outward?
Absolutely. The word familiar means family, right? We get it from fama, which is kind of gnarly because that word is very connected with servant, someone in servitude, and that comes from the women of the household that did all the labor, kind of like Cinderella. So the term familiar spirit throughout witchcraft has a connotation of something that serves you or works with you, that is kind of like Dobby, a house elf, a little bit, right? And a lot of people will treat relationships with familiar spirits in that kind of dominating domestication way. If you look, for example, a really good example of using sentient consciousnesses or like angels or demons is Solomon. So if a lot of people know about Solomonic magic, right, the Goetas or Goetas, I don't know how you pronounce it.
The Goetia or Goetia, I've heard it pronounced several. But
I'm so bad at pronouncing.
I think Goetia is maybe the proper. If I'm
you
not.
Sound good. You sound good. So in those books, he's using and capitalizing on these spirits in order to do his labor. So Solomon assigns these spirits and controls them, right? I don't know, do you know any of the stories of how he controlled them with the ring and everything? It's very epic when you look into the history. But basically Solomon, and if you guys don't know, Solomon from the Bible, like the same patriarch, right? He enslaves these demonic spirits using different sigils or energies or rings, stones sometimes as well. And then basically has them do labor for him, like building the temple, as in the first temple of Jerusalem, all kinds of other things. So there is a kind of idea that your familiar will do stuff for you or do work for you in exchange for food or housing or stuff like that. Kind of like an Igor, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're sort of proposing that a relationship with a familiar spirit can be more symbiotic, right? Where there isn't necessarily this hierarchy of master and servant, where it's more of a communicative bond that exists between the two.
That's right. I think there's a whole spectrum, basically. So you can go all the way to the other end where a spirit can dominate a person. I've encountered that a lot with things like addiction. People that get obsessive compulsive addiction things, I feel like they're being dominated by a certain spirit, sometimes of a plant, right? Or alcohol, whatever. If they've lost their command or mastery over to a spirit that's dominating them, now they've gone the other way, right? But you can also have in the middle, like a marriage or symbiotic relationship where it's more of an exchange or a give and take, like a best friend, kind of. It's like having a friend, has been my experience of it. So I think there's a lot of variety that humans experience with that.
So you do work with spirits that you would consider familiars and familiar spirits, and you have
That's right.
personal bonds with them.
Mine, I wouldn't say that I did it on purpose, because I feel like it has just been with me. I don't know that I like called it in on purpose. It's just kind of here. And I get definite communications, like kind of like how Socrates describes his daemon. I don't know if you know the story of Socrates and how he had like an informant.
I do.
Right?
Yeah.
That he calls a daemon that would just boss him around, tell him what to do. Mine will give me warnings, which have literally saved my life. Driving and on my bicycle, for me it'll be a word, so it is like English, I guess. I'm very thinky talky person in general, so I don't know why I get it in like words and languages, literally like a voice, I guess, would be how I describe it. And then sometimes I'll get images or visions from it that have data and give me information that there's no way I could know. I don't know if I would call it psychic, but it's like coming from the thing, whatever it is. And it's always specific and correct in my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was great, one of the things I love so much about this book is that it extends the idea of the witch's familiar, right? Which we often have this, maybe even prejudiced idea of it being kind of an animal or an imp or something like that, that, as you say, might be inferior to the sorcerer.
Right.
As opposed to the Socratic idea of the Holy Guardian Daemon, which is, in a sense, a more sacred or sanctified or essential part of who we are.
Yes.
That communicates with us in this way of almost absolute truth. I mean, there's a lot of magical systems, I think, that are aimed at trying to identify or communicate with your Holy Guardian Daemon.
On purpose.
Yeah. Such as the Abramelin operation, of course, is probably the most famous. And then Agrippa has these ideas of the Holy Guardian Daemon and finding it through various Hebrew letters in your zodiacal chart that you're able to identify.
That's right. Your heliacal, right? They'll use those too to identify your daemon.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then also the angels of the Shemha Mepharash.
That's right.
Yeah, how they'll be like, okay, well, one of these is your kind of like physical guardian, and that's the one
Right.
that like protects you on your bike, right?
Exactly.
And then there's another one that's kind of your soul daimon, and that's the one that protects you on this level. And there's another one that's your I forget what there's a third one that's intermediary between the two.
Oh yeah.
And it might be spirit or soul. Oh no, moral. It's the moral guardian.
Your conscience.
Yeah.
The conscience.
Yeah.
Yes. I have discovered many people can't hear their conscience.
Yeah.
No, it's like a Jiminy Cricket. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I know, it's funny, the different breakdowns And then some people are like, well, how do you know it's not just part of your higher self? And then obviously another concern is, how do you know who you're talking to, right?
Yep.
So this is the big thing that many Christians don't like witchcraft or any of this, because they believe that the spirits you would be talking to are evil or satanic and have nothing but bad intentions, right? Which I talked a lot in the book about how Abraham actually advised people to use daemons in this fashion in order to help people. It was called the Children of the East, right? Such a great idea, the Children of the East. That sounds like a rock album if I ever heard one. But Abraham in the Bible proper says that communicating with spirits like this is wonderful as long as it's done to try to help people, like in a session like you or I would have with a client, or with your family, or whatever. So there's a lot of judgment, I feel like, that people will give towards engaging with these, because they're like, well, how do you know what it is, or who's talking to you, or which is obviously a concern. For me, I don't know if you have something to say about this, but I can feel, because I work with lots of people, and nature, I can feel nature spirits. I've had interactions with rivers, mountains, and their kind of like essence, which feels very specific. It gives me goosebumps even remembering how the river feels. And it's not the same as, like you were talking about, the different echelons or components of like my Jiminy Cricket or my bike warner. This spirit was detectable as another entity. And if people have some kind of maybe not so friendly spirit, I can feel that too. Just like I know you, we've known each other for a long time, and when I feel you, it's Mickey.
Yeah.
That's who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like it's kind of similar with those things. I don't know. Have you had some kind of similar experience?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's important, and this is a really interesting question that I've always had, and I ask a lot of wise people. How does one really differentiate between a spirit that is out for our higher good and a spirit that might be out for not so much? Because, you know, there's this quote by Nietzsche that I'm very fond of, because it's an interesting question, where it's like, beware that when you cast out your demon or your daimon, that you cast out the best thing about you, right? We can't always necessarily let the moral codes of our time or the moral ideals of our time dictate whether a spirit is good for us or bad for us, right? Or what part of us is our lower nature and what part is our higher. So I'm curious about maybe some of the strategies that you know, you might employ, or that you might sort of use in identifying these different categories of spirit.
Absolutely. My training in terms of techniques comes from Dr. Kelvin DeWolf, who was indigenous, Native American. So his techniques rely more on instinct and feeling. So it's funny because I got goosebumps again just remembering it. So my body will feel if something's sketchy, like as if I'm a dog and I can sniff it. So that's what I use. Maybe other people have different techniques, but I feel like my body's very smart, and I'm pretty good when something's sketchy. I know that feeling, and it happens in a very specific part of my body. So if I'm engaging with something that has dropped down to danger, I know what danger feels like. And if I'm engaging with some kind of spirit that contains danger, even if it's trying to be sneaky or lying, my body can feel it, even if I can't like figure it out with my brain. Yeah.
That reminds me of something that one of a previous guest that we had on the show, Chris Rapucci and Elodie Santon-Jobu, and they work a lot with the lunar zodiac, and it's kind of this like different realm of sensing your environment, and a way that they phrased it, which I thought was really compelling, was how to perceive the world as though you were an animal.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Because of culture or whatever, I don't even know what the real reason is. You could go off on a lot of theories there, but we've been dampened in our perceptual ability greatly, right? most people, if you take, for example, plant medicines, your perceptions get blown open and you're like, what? And you can see all this stuff and hear all this stuff that is usually totally dampened in your mind. I'll give an example. My ear was blocked this one time for a really long time and I couldn't hear out of it, and I went to the doctor to get it fixed, and it had been like a few weeks. I was having this problem, and then the doctor fixed it in an instant, and it was like I was Spider-Man, and everything was hyper. I could hear the rustling of clothes. I could hear the doctors like breathing. It was insane, and everything was magnified, but I was like, this is actually what everything's like all the time, but my brain has dampened it. And similarly, with my teacher's techniques, it's really intense, and you have to do things like fast and, do sensory deprivation and everything. But you can amplify your perceptive ability to be able to see interdimensionally. I can't do it all the time. Like I said, it takes a lot of concentration. Maybe you've had experiences like this. Certainly plants can do it, but we have the ability to do that at any time if you amplify or widen your senses in your animal and utilize them in that fashion. So if you do training to get your body to remember how to do this, you would be very surprised at what you can know as a result of that.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating parts of that book I remember was when you were saying that you were working with this shaman and you guys had fasted for I don't know how many days, several days.
It was like 5 days, yeah.
Yeah, and you had also not slept.
That's right.
Right? So it was almost this like surrealist slash, shamanic trial that you put yourselves through to deliberately derange the senses, as Rimbaud might say, yeah. And that you were able to literally see, like we see in Egyptian iconography, the animal heads on all of your companions. You were able to see their animal kind of...
Their nature.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It's their nature is visible if you can perceive it, right? So, I'm starting to get like a memory of it as we're talking about it, and yours is starting to come out a little bit. It's funny.
I know. Wait, I'm like, what's mine?
Look at my eyes. Oh, it's funny. You're like a dog person.
Really?
Like a wolf.
Really?
Does that ever come up for you?
Well, I always thought that my spirit animal was the Canada goose because it came to me once in a dream and it told me its secret name. And then I have...
Ooh, that's very special.
Yeah, and then I have, and it's happened more than once, but then I must admit I have had other dreams that other animals have revealed their secret names to me. But the Canada goose was the first, and whenever I see flocks of Canada geese, they always lead me towards places that I need to go. Like they sort of serve as these like heralds. I mean, I live in New York, so they're around,
Yeah.
But
they're an omen bird for you.
They are. Whenever I see them, I'm like, I must go this way. It's something that's very there for me. But yeah, like the wolf, like I've also gotten serpent stuff from people, like wolves and serpents, because I feel like both of those animals are, I have a prominent Mercury in my chart, but I'm also a Scorpio rising. So yeah, this is a really interesting transition because I know that you're an astrologer as well as it's almost impossible really to put a label on somebody like you because you have all these shamanic practices and you also have a deep familiarity with astrology and with tarot. I mean, it's just sort of a general occult practice, but I like White Witch of LA for you because you do. I mean, you put yourself through these trials, you put yourself through these shamanic trainings that are very like visceral and are very animal, and some Solomonic situation might not necessarily imply such what's the word, austerities maybe. I mean, certainly there is fasting involved and stuff like that, but not going without sleep and all these other things.
Those are more mental, right? Like math stuff. Like I feel like those magics are all like trying to do a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, you can't not sleep because your intellect has to be sharp because you got to do all these.
It gets sharper when you don't though. If you have to pop through the layer though, right? You start to get this resistance and then you have to keep going. And then once you're past that, it gets better than it was before.
Wow.
Yeah.
But this is interesting. You know, there's so many methods in astrology, like, oh, for example, we have, just like we have a lot of fortune, we also have a lot of daimon.
Yes.
And so some people might say that, like, oh, sure, the lot of daimon is a descriptor for one's Holy Guardian Daemon.
Mm-hmm.
And then Agrippa has all these methods of, you know, kind of calculating the degrees in your chart and, like, you know, assigning Hebrew letters to them and finding the name of your Holy Guardian Angel or Daimon. And then, of course, there's the Abramelin operation and all these other things.
Techniques.
So many techniques. And I wonder sometimes if, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and launch into a theory I kind of have.
Do it.
I almost wonder if the entire astrological chart itself is
the daemon.
Yeah, is or at least is,
or like an alter ego or something.
It forms the sheath or the fabric through which the Socratic daimon, at least, Socrates would say that the daimon witnesses this incarnation about to happen, sees this incarnation about
like
to
a watcher,
happen,
yeah.
and it elects to descend into this human form in order to live out this life. But I'm almost wondering, what if the daimon, it's not such a conscious intellectual decision as we might ascribe to it, and really it's just like, well, wait, that astral fabric that is forming the birth of this body, that coincides with the
It was like a convergence.
Yes,
yeah.
with the
yeah.
astral fabric of that daimon. It finds a resonance with it, and therefore it has a connection.
That makes more sense because that's more natural,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's not something that's ordered by some person in an office. It's
Yeah.
not like swiping on Tinder.
Right.
It's like meeting someone on the street.
Yes.
That's right.
It's like it just fits.
Providence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very much like, say, in the Kabbalistic tradition, how God is unknowable. I obviously use the word God relatively loosely.
Right.
Yeah.
I do too.
Not in,
energetic, not like a white old man on a
right.
throne.
Not necessarily an Abrahamic idea of what God would be, but how divinity is only recognizable or measurable through in aspects.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at it through just certain qualities of itself.
You could never view it in a whole.
Exactly.
We're too limited.
Yes. So very much like if
We'd explode.
Yeah. The truth would just blind.
Too much.
Yeah. Even the sun, the astronomical sun in our chart, is so authentic that it would just burn our eyeballs out. You know.
It's true.
So it's like, only way we can observe it is through isolating certain aspects of it, right?
Like a peekaboo.
Yeah.
It's like a peep show.
Yeah.
Right? You get a little. What's that, right?
Yeah, you get like the leg maybe, or like, you know, like the bicep or something. But
true.
But yeah, like through fragments, and you know, maybe in this way, that's why the Shem Hamephorash angels might be useful. It's like, oh, this is the guardian over my Mars, and this is the guardian over my ascendant or my moon. Because another thing in your book that was rad is when you were talking about Anna Kingsford.
Yes, I love her.
So tell us about Anna Kingsford, because
nobody talks about her.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
She was cantankerous, right? So she definitely had an attitude like myself.
Yeah.
But she was like a Sibylline oracle proper in the tradition and would do channeling. It's funny because she would channel a bunch of stuff like from her angel. And I know that's like a hard word for people, but if you really get into it, like mine also has identified as an angel, which my experience of angel was that it was a level of sentience that you can like arrive at, almost like a rainbow has like layers. So you can kind of like tap into the Michael range, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That was just how it seemed to me. But anyway, Anna Kingsford would have these dialogues with her angel, and it would tell her all this Bible stuff, which of course she could care less about the Bible. Same with me. I get all kinds of Bible stuff. My spirit is like this very like kind of guy that likes to talk about all these Bible things all the time, and I'm like,
really?
I don't care. But things that are like interpretations of biblical things that he's like, people are so wrong about what they think this is. And she had similar ones. So she actually had recorded kind of like an alternative interpretation of the Bible, which she received entirely from this angel, which of course Christians would claim is demonic, right? Because it's not the Bible. How does she know? It's coming from a demon, right?
Yeah.
It's always the thing. And I'm like, I talk in the book about how like Mary basically receives this kind of stuff, and all kinds of women since Egypt and Isis interact with these sentiences, get information about not just the Bible, about civilization, agriculture, music, mathematics. So Anna Kingsford was really part of that tradition of, I don't feel like it matters the gender, that she's a female. I know lots of male oracles as well. I feel like it takes a different kind of man, one that is in touch with their feminine side, which of course is so taboo in this culture that they have to be like a solo, just like, I'm me and I don't care what everybody else says, right? To permit themselves to have that experience, which to me is totally shameful on our society. But the person, whoever they are, is able to have this relationship like Anna Kingsford had, and they're able to just get data and information. Anna Kingsford wrote alchemical material, Woman Clothed with the Sun, for example, which is a fabulous manuscript that talks about the real secrets of what alchemy even is, what happens to you inside of your body, what it means to go through the alchemical process as a human being. And she received this data from her daemon, from her guiding spirit, which she called an angel.
And how does she describe these physical alchemical processes?
I mean, you should really read her stuff.
I know, I will, yeah.
But she basically, I know it's getting all like, woo.
I know, it's like, I know.
It's Anna.
I know, in my mind, I was like, I used to always confuse Anna Kingsford with Alice Bailey, and the fire went.
Oh, they're very
like,
different.
Yeah, it's like,
very different.
Yeah.
No shame to Alice Bailey, but they're like very different situations. Both channelers, though, right?
And both Theosophists, am I right?
I do believe Anna Kingsford had. Did she? I have to look it up. I forget.
I could be wrong.
Alice Bailey was, of
Yes,
course.
okay.
Yeah, but I forget if Anna was. She was very rogue. Like, she was not a culture joiner. She was like a weirdo that just liked to hang out with her cats. She got married and then like didn't like people, had a hard time. It's true. Like, when you start engaging in gnarly spiritual techniques and do,
Whoa.
like I said, dissociative things or interdimensional travel, it becomes difficult to talk with other people, it turns out, right? You have to do quite a bit of grounding, quite a bit of integrating before you can, like, you know, talk to people and get back in your earth body. So a lot of people that engage those things too will get hard to understand, or you like, if you've ever read a channeled book, you can see you're like, what? That sounds crazy. But then you read it from a perspective not of something you would know, and it like is actually very profound.
Yeah. Because what's interesting about something that she brings up, and I did not know this until I read your book, is that she says, all right, look, your spirit self, your daimon self, is cloaked in the signature of the moon in your natal chart, is what she was saying. And I wonder, do you know her chart? Because I wonder if she has a nocturnal chart. It'd be interesting to see if she was born at night. I think, because, you know, I believe that like nocturnal and diurnal births have kind of a, you know, there's a difference.
Very interesting.
And I wondered that when I read that. I was like, whoa, I wonder if she has a nocturnal birth because she associates the moon with daimon, or maybe that's just the truth
that
of
was
it.
an alchemy reference of like Sol and Luna, I think, but it could be from her thing too, right? Who knows? What does anybody know? But so as a human, part of the physical stuff she talks about is that this is your lune, right? Your soul, in Chinese medicine, they call it like your po, your corpse. It's your meat suit. Yeah. Right? This is on loan from Mama Earth, and we have to give it back to her when we're all done. But your spirit is your solar identity, and that's contained within or held. The way, I'm getting goosebumps again. The way my spirit showed me was it was like Mary holding the baby. You're like holding yourself in your little body, just carrying yourself around. And it's like sleeping like a little baby. But there's these things we can do to grow our baby into what my teacher calls a true human. We're like little seeds that have to grow into plants by doing this spiritual work, but everybody's forgotten that this is something that we have to do.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
It's like the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, right? If the ascendant is kind of like the meat suit, right, and the soul is like the animating, the sun, which in Latin is soul, right?
Right.
I'm Cuban, so I say sometimes
Yeah.
I say soul. The soul, the sun is the animating principle, right? Anima, right? Animal.
That's right.
That sort of like gives life to the body. But the moon is the psychosomatic matrix between the two. The moon is the kind of energetic substance
like a field.
Yeah. Very much so, because the rapid rotation of the moon around the earth, it's like it creates a radio static, right?
It does. It's palpable, measurable.
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, it feels like radio static, but also like a fur coat. Like it's like there's something cuddly about it.
You're like wrapped in it.
Yeah, like lunar energy. It's like maternal and cuddly, right? Or like fuzzy or something. And then it comes through just like the crystal field that surrounds a radio transmitter is able to interpret celestial impulses and then convert them into music, the way the physical body, the rising, can convert them into action on the material plane.
I'm so glad you're talking about this now, because this is like what we were talking about earlier with the genius and the muse, right?
Yes.
So this precipitation, I call it, what you just said, how it converts it. Every artist, musicians obviously super so, but every artist or artistic endeavor, whether it's painting, music, architecture, whatever, is basically precipitating this down, right? Obviously there's things people learn from other people, but you talk to musicians, you look through history, you see where people said they got these ideas, these genius. It comes in through a precipitate, and then they do the labor to make it matter, right? A song, so many musicians will say, well, I don't know, just like came in my head and then I like played it, right?
Yeah, and the Socratic idea, I believe Socrates, his idea of daimon and genius were interchangeable. That genius was something, and Aleister Crowley talks about this a lot too, and so does obviously the Persian, in the Persian language, the word jinn, genius or genie or whatever has the same etymology. How genius is maybe not something that someone is, but something that somebody is receptive to. Exactly.
Like a strata of sentience, right? This, I think, is more, not to diminish humanity, right? We're all smart too, or whatever. Some people get all like, no, it was them that did it. And then you get into the ego game, right? Where everyone's like, I did that, I thought that was discovered by scientists, blah, blah, blah. It's like, give me a break. But the amount of human beings that are able to tap into these helpers, these geniuses, these guiders, is so much more than people realize. And I don't know about you, but I can see it in waves. So when I meditate a lot, I'll get like downloads, I guess is the popular term that all the starseeds use these days, or whatever. So I'll get this data and I get it really clear, but I can see it ripple out through people, through songs, pop culture. It'll come out a lot in children's cartoon episodes. And I'm like, oh my God, the creatives are getting the message.
Yes.
And do you see it ever in the ripple?
100%. It's almost as though creativity is something that descends, and to the point where like, not to aggrandize myself, but like I'll have some sort of creative idea, but I won't act on it, and then some other artist or filmmaker or something will do the exact same thing, and I won't be like, they didn't steal my idea. They had no...
Unless they fished it out of your mind psychically,
They had no idea that I thought of it, but it was as though something descends, like in the creative field. And
precipitation.
And whoever picks up the instrument to actually bring it into fruition is the one who gets to be the vehicle or the conduit for it. But I have noticed that where I'll become like obsessed with something or really into something. I'm like, why is everybody posting pictures of this like obscure German like rock star from
it's the celestial zeitgeist.
And there's something about that. It's like the muse or whatever has these like impulses that just
it could come from planets too, like we were talking about earlier. Like What if there's a pulse from a planet that does it? I don't know. Who knows the origin? But maybe multiple. It could come from planets, from spirit. Sometimes I feel like it's like a kind of manna or something that spirit's just like distributing to people. All like, yes, peasants, here's your cake for you to eat. Like, have a little bite and spread it around or whatever. You know, like.
I mean, zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
Like the ghost of the time, the spirit of a time, right?
It's being communicated to people.
Yeah.
100%.
It's almost as though our human bodies are like individual constituents of something that is much more
a giant creature.
Yeah, that is much more all-encompassing than one individual human, right?
It's like Transformers. We can actually all come together into a larger thing.
Exactly.
But everybody fights amongst themselves.
Yeah, or the idea of egregores as well. And, you know,
Totally.
I think in a way we're kind of seeing it with like big data, and we're seeing it, you know, and sometimes maybe not for the best, right? Where like big data is essentially like our id or something, like, you know,
consumptive,
in some monstrous form, and to the point where it takes dominion, right? It takes dominion over how marketable we are, or where our attention
So this gets
goes.
into all the Gollum stuff. So I have another book called Witch's Bestiary, where I mention it, and then also I talk about artificial intelligence in my I Ching book. What you're talking about is that this demonic sentience could take a form of something and become animated, right? This is a big deal right now because, I mean, it's getting really close to happening. Why would it need a human body or meat suit? And this is what the golems were essentially, that if this sentience is accessible, if you know what to do, you can shove it into anything, right? That you could make, and this is the automatons, right? Like Descartes' automaton. So you could take the sentience that we've been talking about, and if you could aggregate it to precipitate into a specific form, that would be like what you just mentioned,
Yeah, like giving life to, in essence, like artificial life to something that is actually
not
sentient.
just life though, like a beingness, like how we are who we are, right? So just life would be like if you could make it move around or whatever, but this would imply giving it like a sentience.
And in those Paracelsian texts, we hear a lot about, say, sexual fluids, right, being put into these vessels as recipes or whatever for these beings and whatnot. Or,
Stem cells.
Yeah.
It's happening now, folks. They're making hybrids. Like, it's going on. You guys should check out Xenobots. Tell you what.
What are Xenobots?
Check that out.
You know, we see in alchemy a lot of imagery of, like, you know, copulating couples in glass vials, right?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of stuff about, you know, horse semen and bury it for this amount of days, and, you know, also the lunar solar imagery of the red lion and the white eagle, and these being the sexual fluids and how they're used in alchemy. Your book talks a lot about concourse between humans and spirits that is sexual, and how there is also a duality there, where sometimes that this concourse with this spirit can be beneficial and can be sacred and holy, such as that quote from Donald Tyson that I really liked, of how divine of an experience it is. And then we also have the experience of incubi and succubi, and how our sexual energy might be kind of like drained or kind of like a vampired in a sense in this way.
Yeah.
So how does that continuum or polarity kind of function in the realm of spirit familiars and spirit contact?
I think the best book, if folks are interested, you can read Iano Quiano. I always mispronounce his name. You know, Ian Quiano, he was a student of Mircea Eliade, and he wrote
Eros and Magic in the Renaissance. Yeah, great, yeah.
So he speaks of like libidinous force and magic in a way that just kicks my ass. So read his book. But libido is a force that is a universal force, and we participate in it. So it's not like personal, right? And so most magicians, witches, whatever, priests as well, figure out that through manipulation of libidinous force, you can have interactions that are supernatural, interdimensional, can accumulate electromagnetism, plasma, you get a charge, right? It makes your blood move. the iron goes, you get magnetized. So a lot of popular magic does manifesting, which I find really boring, as you can't tell by my facial expression. And they try to like manifest like $50 or like a new purse, or I really like those boots, maybe I can make them show up. And that's like the same principle, okay? So in my book, The Secret Source, I talk about that force as like a attractive force. If you take science, you find out about entropy, that there are forces of decay. But I always thought it was fascinating that they don't talk much about the attractive gathering forces which are responsible for life itself, creation of planets, creation of galaxies. This is libido force. This is eros. This is powerful, right? Everyone's so obsessed with destructive force because we're such nincompoops. And I'm like, oh my God, creative force is like a bazillion times better to get a wrangle of than destructive force. Like, I don't know what everybody's doing. Like, your focus is wrong, right? So when you can, like, I was celibate for 5 years while I was doing my ascension practice, where I popped out of the whole thing using Dr. DeWolf's techniques, and you have to like cultivate your libido force and focus it, right? That's how you draw the partner, your marriage partner, your Hyros Gamos, to you, is with your libido force. But most people blow their wad, right? They can't, it's just all going everywhere, like whatever, which is fine, that's natural, right? We're here to like play or whatever. But if you cultivate it, you get mojo, right? And so you can draw, you get a higher magnetism by using that force for something other, than just whatever boring stuff it is you're doing. No offense. Probably you're doing more exciting things, but
no. I mean, I'm so into this actually. I mean, for months I practiced Taoist yoga and sexual kung
all that
fu
stuff.
and,
yes.
Yeah, semen retention.
100%.
And not ejaculating. I mean, for ages, and it was great. My hair got all like boom, lion-like, and I got all like strong, and you know what I mean. And I try to be. I mean, certainly when there are eclipses or when the moon is on one of the lunar nodes, I definitely don't mess with ejaculation at those times, and
never know what you'll bring in.
Yeah, right, those nodes, but the thing is like, yeah, but nodes also bring in magical people like yourself.
Correct.
Right, because you've got the sun, you're an eclipse baby, right?
That's right.
But the thing is that there's something about it, and I don't know what it is. Montauk Chia, are you familiar with?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
He's great, and he's like, in Chinese alchemy and Taoist yoga, the priests, if they ejaculated, at home or whatever, they would be like, hey, sorry, but I won't be back in the temple for 7 days because there's no use.
Purify, yeah.
There's no use for me to be there. I'm not going to
mojo.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to talk to divinity, right? All my, I don't know.
Static electricity.
Yeah, exactly. I call it moon juice. Like all my moon juice is gone. It's like you need that astral substance, right?
It's electromagnetic.
Yeah.
So if there's other ways to generate it, but libido force is just the easiest, right? And accessible, and everybody has it, right? A lot of women will focus their imaginative, obsessive phantasmagoria on some idealistic image of whoever their pursuit is at the time, and they become completely sort of maniacal and drive it down. So when we take that force and direct it at something like, say you have like a crush, right? And you're gonna be like a stalker. So your libido is gonna turn into like a panther, and it's gonna stalk your crush, right? This can be very dangerous, and I have a lot of clients who are like messed up because they can't get their mind off of this person because they keep ruminating and obsessing about the person, and then all of a sudden they've now developed like a psychological illness because they can't get their libido off of their crush.
Yeah.
And it causes them a lot of damage.
Yeah, and it's really, and you do illustrate this in the book, that they're not, the object of their affection is not even the actual person, it's this phantom.
An image.
Yeah, exactly. It's
a phantom.
It's this phantom that they've created around that person.
That's
a
right.
complete projection and a complete fantasy.
That's going to draw an incubus or succubus to them,
Yes.
right? So the incubus or succubus is going to try to match that thing that they can't get, and you're actually going to pull in some kind of obsessive compulsive spirit, like an addiction spirit, right?
Yeah.
Through that kind of hyper imagination, which you also need if you're going to create art as well, which is why everything gets all weird, right? So I usually just recommend to people in my practice and experience, you have to watch your focus. Where are you going to put that little pinpoint, right? You better pay close attention on where you're putting your pinpoints.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, how do you advise people to direct their eros or to direct their sexual energy? If, for
Right.
example, say that they are, on one extreme, we have the people that become stalkers, right, or
Totally.
become obsessed with people,
Yeah.
which I find terrifying. And then the
But
other,
just a natural libido at the same time totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
yeah, I suppose. But when the person doesn't know you that well, I think that's a
Or
little
at all.
scary.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I've had
And
it happen lots.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so nutty. I can't stand it. But then at the same time, there's, for example, pornography and how it's so just proliferating everywhere,
Absolutely.
right? So
libidinous focus.
yeah, exactly. So this
And drained onto what?
Yeah.
Onto nothing. They're cuckolds. You know what they look like in spirit world? They look like, I don't know, you know, a cuckold, right?
Yeah, a cuckold.
You have no power at all, by the way. When you focus on these phantasmagorias with your libido, you're fucking like a shriveled raisin, a cuckold. You got no mojo.
wow.
FYI, peeps. Like, go do the real thing. You'll be better off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah, because in sexual intercourse, there is an exchange. That's the thing in Taoist yoga, they don't say abstain from sex. On the contrary, they want you to
Harness it.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
to stimulate, right? Like with a partner or with yourself, whatever.
On purpose.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and
That's right.
consciously and with breath, but simply do not. There are Gnostic parables that they say that Adam and Eve and the tree of knowledge is that. It's like that, that biting into the apple, right? That explosive, like orgasmic, like this, like a oral sensation of actually crunching into the apple. But everything else, like dance around the tree.
The taboo.
Yeah, it's like be in it, but that release, right, is what sometimes I think.
The death.
Yeah, it's really
The
interesting.
destructive force
Yeah.
is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So, which obviously we can't get away from destructive force, and we have it happen every second of every day inside of us, outside of us, everywhere. It's a natural force. But the point of utilizing magic correctly, in my opinion, is to gather and concentrate our creative force. This is the key of all the work of the immortals, of alchemy, that you gather enough creative force. That's what immortality is. It's the ability to withstand destruction, correct? So you need your libido, right? But what we're trained through the whole culture to blow it on some like fucking Disney fantasy of a person that
Yeah.
you're supposed to get. And I've met very few people who are in command of their own libidinous force, sadly, especially women, whose whole mentality will get taken by either their partner, a fantasy, 50 Shades of Grey, whatever. They have no control of their libido power whatsoever. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
So wait, you've got sun right on the node?
There are a few degrees apart, not exactly conjunct. My node is at 7 degrees and my sun's at 2.
Oh, that's still pretty
Yeah.
close, yeah. And
My node is conjunct Venus and Neptune,
north?
north node.
Oh. And I might edit this out because it's a little wacky, but my theory is
I
really
like wacky.
Yeah, is that the north node is kind of a gateway to spirits that are a bit like sort of the fathers of the Nephilim that you describe in the book, right?
Right.
This kind of like a
the watchers from the book of Genesis, right? The sons of heaven that come and have babies with the daughters of mankind, and that's why the flood is sent to like wipe out this race of abominations, right? The North Node, there's something about that node where the spirits are hungry. They and that's why they say that in I'm not an expert on Vedic astrology by any means, but it is...
The Rahu and Ketu is like a big deal. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
And that Rahu and Venus, Venus is one of the few planets that Rahu actually has a good relationship with. Yeah, because Rahu is hungry for whatever that planet brings, right?
Sagittarius, I need knowledge.
Yeah.
It won't let me stop. It's like ridiculous.
And also, if it's Venus, right? Like I mean, everything you're discussing, right? These kind of like erotic concourse with spirits and stuff like that.
God is my boyfriend. Yeah.
God is my boyfriend. I know. Oh my God. Yeah.
That's what it is. I know. I'm destined.
Yeah. Your email is God is my boyfriend, and you've got Venus on the node.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Like Madonna has Jupiter on the node, and she's all like,
funny.
"Oh, I'm just gonna use religious iconography for my whole
sign?
Everything." I can't remember what sign her Jupiter's in, but I just remember her having it on the node. I'm like, wow, what an interesting expression where we get this like hungry, massive...
So what do you think about people with planets on the South Node? Because I usually find that can be like difficult for them. They get like, instead of the hunger, it's more like a detriment sometimes.
It wants to extract.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the South Node wants to eliminate and dematerialize whatever it touches.
Or just like keep doing the same thing, like playing the same song or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The South Node wants to deplete and detoxify and sometimes like over cleanse whatever it's touching.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it wants to take matter and like dissolve.
It wants to fast instead of eat.
It wants to dissolve it into spirit, kind of, right? It wants to. It's almost this oral anal kind of situation, right? Where we've got the
mouth and butt of the dragon.
Exactly,
yeah,
right?
Totally.
We've got the Rahu, which is like, give me more. So if you've got Rahu on a malefic like Mars or Saturn, it's gonna want pain. It's gonna want conflict. It's going to want all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you've got Rahu on a Venus or Jupiter, it's going to like larger than life that thing and almost have this like fiendish experience for it on the material plane, right? It's like the gateway, for these like Nephilim-like spirits or something like that. Whereas the South Node is, or Solomonic spirits even, spirits that demand something in recompense of some kind, that they want you to do something, they want to experience something through you. Whereas a South Node spirit is almost more like, oh, the little like Enochian microchips that make everything up. Like they want to disintegrate, right? With the North Node, we get things that are born too big. We get we get abominations. With the South Node, we get things that are malformed or rudimentary, things that haven't really come to full a manifestation. And it has come up on the show before, right? How our sexual energy and how we hone it and how we use it and what makes your practice so I mean, look, Maja, most people simply do not have it in them to be celibate for 5 years.
They won't do it.
I mean, I don't want to do it.
No one does, right? It's difficult. I have Mars in Scorpio. You know what I mean?
I know. What house?
It's in the 3rd house, so I just talk and then it like gets satisfied. But
so you've got Mars in Scorpio, and then you've got Venus on the North Node, and yet you're somehow able to. But that's the thing, because the nodes are portals.
I direct it up, right? So for me, I place my focus on spirit, not any. I didn't want anything. I didn't try to get money. I don't care. I mean, obviously, I need money. I can't do stuff without it, but I really don't care. Like I joke with my friends, I'm like an anti-manifester, because if you want me to have some kind of passion about manifesting stuff, I could give a fuck. My passion and desire to have congress with spirit, however, is very great. And I can do that all day long, over and over and over again. I'll do that like a motherfucker. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
I mean, that's some Venus on the node.
Right?
Like, that's like...
It's true. I'll keep going, too, and do it again the next day. Like, when I was practicing Kelvin's techniques, there was some days I would drop my kids off with their father, and I was meditating 8 hours a day, right? Doing it nonstop, like hardcore. I mean, obviously, monks are doing it more than me, but I'm good to go the distance. Like I'll sit and do it, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna get it done.
Yeah, I mean, that's what real sacrifice is, you know? What sacrifice really is that kind of like abstention, right? That kind of like,
focus.
Whoa, like I'm zoning in.
That's right.
I'm putting this somewhere else.
That's
you
right.
You know what I mean? And it's...
Musicians can do it too. Like if you go, it sounds so dumb, but like a Grateful Dead concert where they're noodling out for like 9 hours, like they're on another plane, right? Because their concentration and focus is doing this thing, and their libidos are attached to it, and they're doing it in Congress together. Like that's that kind of like seeing it through, holding the note, right? That's what is going to accumulate the magnetism.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn, that is so fascinating. Well, Maja, honestly, I mean, your work and your writing and your lectures and everything that you do, I mean, for years, you know, I've been such a fan, and
I'm your fan too. I love your art and everything.
Oh yeah, and your drawings, forget about it. I mean, that's what's so great about it. You know, you have your actual artwork in the book to like give us imagery of what this stuff is, and your work, I mean, it feels channeled. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does not feel mortal.
I get weird, yeah.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, you know, and it really has that true mark of spirit in what you do. And this book is, well, I haven't read your I Ching one yet.
Oh yeah, I'll get you a copy.
Yeah,
totally.
I need to.
Do you ever do I Ching?
Oh yeah, I love the I Ching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so
Epic.
into it.
Yeah,
it's
changed
the
my
best.
life.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's like one of my favorite, like oracular. It's the only thing I'll do on myself. I don't,
right? Because it's not interfering and you can't interpret it.
Right.
It's so straightforward. It's very yang, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, no, it's this.
Yeah, I can't read my own tarot because like the basis, like the informational reservoir is just like too overloaded for me, you know. But I Ching, like that's where I go.
So straightforward. Me
again,
too.
Life saving. I feel the same way.
Absolutely.
It's really just so magical. But Familiars in Witchcraft, this book is the best. You got to get it. Also, The Secret Source. Everything Maja puts out there. Solid gold. Do you have anything coming out? Anything new in the works?
I am writing like 5 more books. We'll see if anybody wants them. They're kind of weird.
Wow.
But no, I'm working on an astrology book, but it views astrology differently. So we'll see. I don't know if it'll be received because I'm not doing it like regular style. But and then I'm also working on 3 research-based books. So it's like research about alchemy and a couple other topics. The research stuff is, as you know, like when you write articles, it takes so long. So we'll see what happens. And then I'm trying to make 2 novels too. So those are more fun.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right.
First time I've done creative writing, so it's really been fun. I don't have to worry about footnotes.
Man, that's going to be awesome.
It'll be fun.
Well, Maja, I can't believe it. It's been so awesome having you.
Oh, it's so fun. I love talking to you.
I know, me too. You're the best, really. And we will do this again.
Absolutely.
We'll have you back.
Please.
When your next book comes out, we'll have you back on the show.
It's a date.
Definitely. And thank you all so much for being here. This has been Time Lord TV, and we will see you next month.